Okay, let me get comfy. Ow, my knee. Ooh.
Oh, you looking so sweet over there. You looking so sweet over there. Oh, there's a mic stand in the way. Let's not talk about that. Damn. I've been gone for a really long time. And I can explain by not explaining. Let me explain. So I'm working on finalizing a major project of mine. And I don't feel too much comfortable explaining or sharing anything else besides that. I guess I could tell you that hopefully in June is when the final piece of the puzzle will be done. And then I don't know when you guys are going to see it, but hopefully not long after that. I'm really cryptic. Yeah. I'm sorry. So yeah, I know I haven't been doing Waffle Wednesdays. I just don't have a whole lot to talk about, and the things that I am doing, I don't want to share too much information about them. I think in one of my last Waffle Wednesday videos, we discussed like motivation leak and the power of the mantra, and I really want to focus all of my energy on completing this project and then moving on to the next project. So I'm sorry that I haven't been here for a while and I haven't been sharing things with you. Just understand that there's a reason for it, and hopefully I'm not overhyping anything. Hopefully I'm not setting unreasonable expectations. I'm just trying to focus on me and what I'm doing, if that makes any sense. But I figured it'd be fun to do another like lore episode where I just talk about random things that happened in my life. And one of the weirdest things that happened to me was the time, and I figured I'd tell you that story. But to tell you that story, I have to go back a little farther. So just bear with me while I try to unravel the folds of my memory and tell this story just off the cuff. I don't have anything written. It's just my personal telling of what happened to me back in, oh God, when was this? We'll just call it like 2017, 2018. No, it couldn't have been 2018. Oh no, the ADHD brain's going. It's doing what the ADHD brain does. All right. So if I start, but I graduated high school in 2012. 2012 plus 3 is 2015. Let's just chalk this up to time as a construct, and I don't know when this happened, but it was around my early 20s. Let's call it that. Let's fuck the years. I was in my early 20s when this happened. Ultimately, I decided to leave Menards to pursue another career option, which was supposedly going to net me significantly more money. And that was going to be over-the-road truck driving. It's weird, I get it, but I've had a lot of weird jobs. The ADHD brain do what the ADHD brain does, and I just go to the next thing for X reasons, right? And this reason at that time was money, needed money. So I, talked to a recruiter for, they're fucking terrible. Don't ever work for, fucking do not work for them. They are absolutely awful. And I have countless stories on my end to share on how absolutely abysmal it was working for them. Anyway, so I was talking to the recruiter. He was basically telling me like, oh yeah, you're gonna make like $100,000 your first year. Like most of our drivers end up like capping out at around like 125, 150,000 after their first year. And I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. But I don't have any money to like pay for CDL school. And he's like, oh nah, don't worry about it, man. Like, we'll pay for your CDL school. We'll train you how to drive a truck. And you don't pay a dime. You just work for us for 9 months. I think it's actually more now, but back then it was like 9 months. I'm like, okay, trade 9 months of my life to get a CDL, which will net me more money in the long run and give me a skill, like a practical skill that I can leverage for more money in any job that I want, right? So I signed up, and very fortunately for me, I was living in Northwest Indiana, and the closest trucking school was in Northwest Indiana. It was literally like a 20-minute drive from my house. So I didn't have to go to a hotel room and, basically camp out in a hotel room with strangers for 2 weeks. So that was cool. I just drove to the facility, and when I say they didn't train me or teach me how to drive a truck, what I'm really saying is they trained me how to pass the CDL exam. Does that make sense? Like, to get your CDL, you have to go through the Department of Transportation. And they have a written test that you have to take, and then obviously your driving test. And once you pass that, you get your CDL, you can go drive a Class A truck or Class B truck, Class C truck. They're all different classifications. When I say that this company really truly didn't teach me how to drive a truck, I mean they really didn't teach me how to drive a truck. Like, day one of class was literally going through a pamphlet like that thick, and there were like certain highlighted sections of the pamphlet. And then later on, I learned that that pamphlet was really just like the CDL guide that the Department of Transportation gives you to train and study for your written exam for the CDL, right? So it's like this company knew what questions they would ask you on the test, and they said, only focus on these highlighted parts. Any other questions that you have, we're not interested. We're not going to answer them. Just focus on the highlighted stuff. Make it simple. That was their whole thing. They're like, keep it simple, focus on the highlighted stuff. And there was stuff in there about like your like air pressure gauges and mechanisms of the truck and like emergency stops, certain laws that apply to like truck drivers on the road and all that stuff. And the first 2 or 3 days, I think it was about three or 4 days actually, was just written stuff. And we took like tests in the class. It was like 6 or 8 hours a day of just like quizzes and studying and reading and reciting and like memorizing this stuff, so that when we went to the DMV, well, BMV in Northwest Indiana, we took our written exam, and it was exactly the questions that were like highlighted in that pamphlet. So I was just like, okay, I don't even like know or remember what the answers were, but they were like really specific stuff of like if your air pressure gauge reads like this number, what does that mean? Or like how much distance do you need to like complete a full stop at like 60 miles per hour, stuff like that. And it's stuff that we rehearsed over and over and over and over and over again in the school. So I just knew them and I just wrote it down, and I passed with flying colors, 100%, right? Because that's what the school did. So now we had our permit. Now we were authorized by the Department of Transportation. There we go. Alliteration. Pronunciation. Enunciation. So we had a permit now to actually like drive a truck under supervision and learn how to like operate a giant fucking semi truck. And that was honestly like the most fun time, was obviously driving the truck and learning how to go straight, go back, do turns, parallel park, all that stuff. And then towards the end of the class, we went on trips that were on a very, very distinct route around the trucking like facility, the truck driving facility for this company. They told us that this route that you're taking is the exact route that you'll be taking for your CDL exam. So like when you're like making these turns, it's so hard for me to explain this to like someone who hasn't driven a truck, but like you're a giant semi truck. You can't just take turns how you normally do in a car. You have to like give yourself proper room, and there's math involved with that and experience involved, but we have no experience, and we're not going to stop and get out of our truck with a protractor and a ruler and figure out, oh, at this angle I need to No. So they just told us, hey, that little dot you see on like the intersection there, like as soon as you don't see the dot over your little hood, just like turn the wheel like X amount of times and you'll make the turn perfect every single time. And that's like what they did. They used like landmarks on the route to kind of like show us and tell us exactly how to drive the truck for that route. And they told us these are what the instructors are going to ask you. These are what the instructors are going to look for. This is what they're like psychologically doing to you to like figure out if you know the answers to this question, like all that stuff, right? And then the day comes to get my CDL, and I passed the test with flying colors. I missed like I don't even think I actually missed anything. Oh, I completely forgot about the pre-trip inspection. So the Department of Transportation has like a pre-trip inspection that you need to do for the truck. And why am I even mentioning this? Is not relevant at all to the story. This is just, forget I even said that. If you want to look at what a pre-trip inspection is, go ahead and look at all 180 points on the pre-trip inspection. But I had to memorize all that shit, and I couldn't miss a single one, or I wasn't allowed in the truck to continue my driving test. Anyway, got my CDL. So company was like, hey, congratulations, you work for us now. We're going to get you with a like a truck driving trainer, and you're basically going to be driving with a partner for your first, I think it was like 6 months of your contract with us, because you obviously need the experience and you need someone with more experience to kind of show you the ropes and guide you. And I'm like, oh, that's really nice, actually. I completely understand that. So it was a couple days later, they got me a driving trainer. His name's Joe, and I have a lot of fond memories of Joe. Joe was a very interesting individual, and thank God I had Joe as a trainer, because the rest of my experience with this company and just the stories that Joe was telling me, I really could have just gotten paired with someone who graduated from CDL school 2 weeks ago, and that would have been enough experience to put me out on the road. And some of these trainers, like, just don't know what they're doing and don't know how to train other people. So I really lucked out getting Joe. He was a veteran. He'd been driving for, I think, like 20 years or something like that. And he was a really nice guy, but he was very, like, stern with when he told you to do something, you did exactly what he said and you didn't question it. And that'll come into play later in this story. I learned very quickly to trust him, and thank God I did. So the first couple like days of driving the truck, you know, it's like riding a bike without the training wheels. You're trying to figure out like, oh shit, I need to, you know, look a certain distance ahead of me so that I don't like rock my trailer back and forth, and I can't let the steering wheel slip between my hands because it'll rock the stuff behind me, all that stuff. And we ended up in, I want to say this was like Idaho or something. Oh, I'm getting into the actual story now. Don't worry. Like, it's going to get interesting from now on. We were somewhere in like Idaho, like northwest central-ish America, that area. I don't know exactly where. And trucks have a specific GPS on them that like take you on routes that trucks can go on. Like, you can't just use Google Maps on your phone because you don't know what like height the bridges are or like how wide the roads are, stuff like that. So we have a special GPS that's like, this is safe for a truck to go on. And I remember I just started like my driving shift, and he's like, I'm going to go in the back, I'm going to go sleep. And when you're done with your shift, you know, I'll pick back up. We'll get this, you know, trailer to wherever it's going. Like, it was going to like California or something like that. Did a lot of that back and forth, but I digress. And he told me very specifically, he was like, just stay on this highway. You're literally going to stay on this highway for like 560 miles. You're going to just stay on this highway until I get out of my bed, and then we're going to get on a different highway, and we're going to stay on that highway for like 300 miles. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm driving, everything's going fine, it's going great. And then all of a sudden there's a lot of traffic. And when I mean a lot of traffic, I mean there's like miles of just stopped parked cars. And I saw up ahead there was like some like medivacs, and there were like ambulances and fire trucks like scurrying past us, and I'm like, oh, there's like a major accident up ahead. I'm gonna be here for a while, right? And I remembered what Joe said. He was like, just stay on this highway, don't veer off of this highway, don't go anywhere else. And I'm like, okay. So I literally just like throw my air brakes on. I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here and chill. And then I sat there for like 20-30 minutes, and all of a sudden the GPS, like the truck GPS, rerouted, and it said, hey, you can actually like take this road over here. It's like literally right next to you. And I'm like, oh, so like the GPS found a detour to get around all of this nastiness. And I didn't want to wake up Joe, so I'm like, well, this should be fine, right? I mean, the GPS can only take me on routes that trucks can go on, and I might save us some time and get the load there on time if I just take this little detour, right? Foreshadowing. So I see this little road off to the left, and I decide to take it. And then there were a bunch of other cars I noticed in front of me also taking this road. And then when I took that road, there were a lot of cars behind me taking the road. I guess like all the GPSs were like, hey, huge accident ahead, go and take this road, detour off, right? So I'm like, cool. And I'm driving for maybe about 35 minutes. And then all of a sudden, it just dawns on me. Like, have you ever been driving for a really significant, like, amount of time where you kind of just, you've been driving and following the road laws, and you've been safe and aware and, like, careful the whole time, but you, like, don't, you're like not mentally there, you're like daydreaming or something? That happens a lot when you drive like long distances. And I just like realized that the amount of cars in front of me and behind me are like dwindling. There's like less and less cars surrounding me. And I'm looking at the GPS. I've been checking the GPS the whole time. It's like, no, you just stay on this road. You're going to be fine. And I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, there's no cars around me. And I check the GPS. GPS is like, yep, you're good. Just stay on this road. But the landscape starts changing. It's no longer like forest around me. It's just like open fields, like hills and open fields. There's nothing. There's not even like farmhouses, nothing around me. And then I notice that the road is getting thinner and thinner. And that's when my instincts kicked in, and I stopped my truck. There was no one around me, and I'm like, something's not right here. I checked the GPS one more time. GPS is like, trust me, bro. Just keep going on this road. You're going to detour right back there in about 100 miles or so. But something just didn't feel right. So I wake up Joe, and I'm like, hey, man, I know you said to stay on this highway, but I took this little detour. Immediately, Joe starts crashing out. He's like, you did what? Like, why did you take a detour? I told you to stay on this road. I explained the situation. And, you know, he like gets out from the curtains. He looks around the windshield, and his jaw just drops. And he's like, oh, fucking no, you didn't. To make matters worse, so at this point, I've been driving for maybe about an hour or so on this like side road to detour around this accident. And to make matters worse, our fuel tank is like a quarter of the way empty, or a quarter of the way full. It's on like the quarter towards empty. We got like a quarter tank of fuel left. I know how many MPGs we had. Joe kind of figured it out and calculated, and he was like, well, one, we can't turn back for two reasons. One, we don't have room. Like, the fields had like these big like rain divots next to them. I'm sure everyone's seen like a rain divot next to a road. So we can't, there's like no room for us to back up and backtrack. And even if we did, we wouldn't hit a fuel stop in time before we just ran out of fuel. So he's like, the only thing that we can do is just keep going on this road that is at this point very clearly not made for trucks at all. Even though the GPS is saying this is totally fine, you guys are great, just keep going, looking at it with my own two eyes, no, it's fucking not. Like, we're not on a major road anymore. We're on like a backcountry road, and we're a 60-ton fucking semi truck. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't okay. So at this point, Joe is like, I'm taking over. Like, I don't trust you driving this. Like, we gotta just power through. And we drive for like another 30 or 40 minutes, and all of a sudden we see a hill in front of us, and then past that hill is another hill, and then another hill, and then another hill, and then another hill. We realize we are ascending a small mountain, and it was starting to get dark around then. And Joe just kind of looks at me, and he wasn't trying to like put blame on me. I think he really just wanted me to understand that, like, this is a very, very serious fuck up that you just did, and there's going to be very serious consequences if we don't pull this off perfectly. We're racing our fuel tank, we're racing a narrowing road, and we are ascending a mountain. He's like preparing me mentally for the shitstorm that we're about to get in. And when I say it's a shitstorm, that's a fucking understatement, okay? So, fast forward a little bit in this story. I'm really trying not to panic, but I'm like a young 21, 22-year-old kid, and, you know, it's starting to hit me how dangerous this job can really, really be. And it's starting to get like pitch black out. And if I were to guesstimate the length or the width of the road, well, there was one point I was looking out my passenger side like door. I was looking like out the window of it, and I could see the edge of the passenger side tire on the edge of the road. And you want to know what's on the other side of that road? Thousands of feet of just drop. Nothing. Empty fucking void. So we have to maintain a certain speed in order to get to the next fuel stop without running out of fuel, abandoned on a fucking small mountain in the middle of nowhere with no fucking cell service, not even radio signals. Like, if we get stuck and stranded up here, we're probably dead. Like, no one's gonna fucking come find us. And then I start panicking. I'm literally texting my mom my GPS coordinates, and I'm explaining to her, I love you. I'm sorry. I tried everything that I could. I don't know if I'm going to make this out alive. And I don't really remember like what my mom was, you know, saying at the time. She seemed pretty calm. I think maybe she was just trying to calm herself down, or maybe like try to calm me down, not add to the stress. But I was actively preparing myself to die. I mean, we were at this point ascending and descending this mountain at various points at around 50, 60 miles per hour. The road is like basically our truck is almost hanging off the side of this road. And I'm like hyperventilating, I'm panicking, I'm starting to like, you know, cry a little bit. And that's when Joe just like looks at me and he says, I want you to just go in the back of the sleeper. Just shut the curtains, go get some sleep. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? We're like inches away from death here. Like, I'm way too wired to fucking sleep. He was like, go into the back. He said it so calm, so peacefully, so calm. He was just like, go into the back and get some sleep. There's nothing else that you can do right now. Okay? And I trust Joe. If he tells me to do something, I'm going to do it, with the exception of staying on the highway that got us in this whole situation. So I'm like, okay. And I, you know, step to the back of the sleeper and I close the curtains, Velcro them up, and I just get myself ready for bed, like get my sleeping shirt and my pajama bottoms on. And I grabbed my little, we still had like sleeping bags and stuff, because you don't want to share bedding with like a complete stranger. That's kind of fucking weird. So got my sleeping bed ready, and I tried to fall asleep and I couldn't. I just heard like, I don't even know how long it was for, but I heard like the jostling and twisting and like scraping of metal from the truck, and like the brake, the hard braking, the harsh acceleration. I felt and heard all of it. And at some point I just fell asleep. I had to have, because the next thing that I remember is waking up, truck's not moving, and I hear other diesel engines off in the distance. And I open the sleeper curtain and I see these bright fluorescent lights and I see all these pumps, and I realize we made it to the next truck stop. And I'm not over exaggerating when I say this. If I can find Joe somewhere, I can have him corroborate this. I jumped out of the truck in my fucking pajamas and just like kissed the fucking ground. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't fucking believe it. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I see Joe walk up to the truck and he's got like a big 32-ounce cup of like soda. He's got like a couple shopping bags of like snacks for the truck. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing, kid? Like, get the fuck back in the truck. Like, someone's gonna see you. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe, how'd you get through that? Like, how did we do that? How did we do that? And he's like, get in the fucking truck, get in the fucking truck. So I get in the truck, close the door, and he looks at me and he was like, I hope you learned a very valuable lesson. And I was like, yeah, don't like get off of the path that you tell me to take. He was like, no. See, what you did back there was you panicked. And when you panic in like life or death situations, it almost always ends up in death. And he saw me panicking and it was starting to make him panic a little bit. So he just set all of his emotions aside and he just very calmly and collectedly removed the stress from the situation, which was me. He's like, you're freaking me out. You're freaking yourself out. Just get back there. Get away from me. Let me focus. And that's when I learned firsthand how like panicking in situations like that affects your judgment. It affects your decision making. It affects everything. And we lived that day because Joe didn't panic. He removed the stress from the situation to get out of a stressful situation, if that makes sense. And man, I stayed with Joe for like 2 or 3 weeks after that, and I thanked him damn near every day for saving my life. And he was like, I didn't save anybody's life. I just did my job. Like, I'm a truck driver. I drive a truck. It's not rocket science, right? I just do it as safely and efficiently as I can. And then down the line, I had like a different driving, like trucking partner at some point, and we went to some truck stop somewhere, and I ended up seeing Joe like completely out of nowhere. It'd been like months that I hadn't seen Joe, and I just ran up and I gave him a big old fucking hug, and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" It was like, I'm just glad to see you, Joe. Like, I'm glad that you're still doing well. He had like a different trucking student with him, and you know, I explained to his student, like, you got the best fucking trucking trainer that you could ever fucking ask for. You really, really do, and I hope you understand that. And Joe just had like a big smile on his face, and he just patted me on the back, and he was like, "It's good to see you too." And we went our separate ways, and I never saw Joe again after that. On like a side note, with everything else that I went through in my life, so I've like explained a little bit of what like psychosis is, I think, in past videos, but you know, that was far from the most traumatic thing that happened to me on the truck. And I maybe we'll save it for a different video, a different time. But I, for lack of better term, saw some shit, and it fucked me up really, really bad. And I remember for like a while in therapy, I was convinced that that day on the truck when You know, we were thousands of feet up in the air on some like weird cattle path, hanging off the edge of a mountain, like near death, texting my mom my fucking GPS coordinates to find my fucking corpse. I thought that I died that day, and I just like was living in limbo ever since then. And just to kind of give you guys a glimpse into like what I've been through, like that was a very real reaction and emotion that I had. Like I still kind of, I don't want to say that I battle with it today. It's not really a battle. It's just something in the back of my mind that like something will happen in my life, something will, like, good or bad, and I'll just like have that little thing pop in the back of my mind, and it'll just be like, are you sure you're even alive right now? And then it just goes away. It's like it's a fleeting thought. That used to be something that like drove me insane, like quite literally drove me insane for so long, and now it's really just a passing thought, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any dominion over me. It doesn't do anything except just remind me that, hey, you survived, right? You survived a really catastrophic and really dangerous situation. And it's kind of humbling in a way. It reminds you that, you know, life may be tough, and you may go through some tough things in life. You may make some tough decisions that maybe don't sit right or don't look right initially, but at the end of the day, you're going to be all right. You're going to live, because I lived, you know? So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and maybe we'll do some more stories in the future. Bye.